Yeah.
Over 80% is created by non-raw materials, the real economy sectors. So you would understand clearly that you can hurt Russia in this area. It's not easy to do that.
Well, I have, since the start of the special military operation, and you could go back and look at my blog, sonar21.com, I was one of the few at the time writing when the sanctions were imposed on Russia that this was like spitting into a hurricane, because Russia, as the #1 country in the world in terms of natural resources, you could build a wall around it and it would be fine economically. It doesn't need anything from Europe. It doesn't need anything from the United States. It really doesn't need anything from China and India. Yes, it can make the country wealthier with trade, but it's not in a dependent position. However, the majority of American economists in particular, and including current Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, they genuinely believe that Russia's economy is fragile, that it can't sustain growth, and that all we have to do is apply economic pressure and it will force President Putin to surrender. Because they're saying, well, you know, they have a labor shortage. You know, you look at 2.8% unemployment, say, oh, there's a labor shortage. Most countries would die to have 2.8% unemployment. That the declining birth rate, which is the same in the West, but that all of this argues against Russia's ability to have a successful economy. And when I try to point out to say, well, look, yeah, they were growing 4.4% in 24, 4.7% in 2024, but then the central bank said, we've got an inflation problem. Let's deal with that inflation. And the inflation came down, was again an example I would call of a healthy government that says, we have a problem, we need to fix it. Whereas in the United States right now, our deficit continues to grow. Our debt to GDP ratio a year ago was like 124%. And now the debt to GDP ratio is like 126. It keeps going up. And we're not fixing it. So do you, as you know, you're the #2 person within this, the legislature, do you and your colleagues understand that the West has such a misunderstanding of the Russian economy?
Well, thank you for the beginning of the information. I see that you're asking questions that are with a substance. There's a lot of answers in your questions, okay, because your questions are correct. But let me just swing by. They don't understand? Of course they don't.
Yeah.
What I say is that in my position, it's my personal position, you know, and it's my personal, I am from the State Duma, but I give my own personal point of view.
Sure.
So I think that many in the West, they still look at Russia, and not just Russia, but we talk about Russia as a metropole in the colony, because if we talk about the falling apart of the Soviet Union, what it did, it relaxed the West. Here's the victory, ideology and economy, yes. They worked through the 90s and they prevailed when Russia was just a branch with the gas and oil.
Mm-hmm.
And probably West thought it would be forever, that they forgot to notice those transformations that took place in the 90s in Russia. And when Mr. Putin came to power, being a president, everything coordinately changed. And we can say today for sure that there's a misunderstanding, misconception. They don't receive, they don't take the changes. They come back as a boomerang to the West. I fully agree with you. That is not Russian experience, or Chinese, or American, or Russian. These are people around you. And we cannot take it out of the formula. The sovereignty of each state, it is formed from simple measures. Sovereignty, its possibility of every state independently make decisions concerning their own direction, their own development, due to their own resources, in the interest of their own nation. Question: does Russia have this potential? Yes.
Yeah.
What is the potential? You said that correctly. That's the, Mendeleev chart that we have. But that's not the main thing. We have a high level of competency that we have from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The education, the knowledge. This is the instrument that allows us even now to implement all the targets of the goals. What are they? Can the country now cover fully itself? Some say, no, you can't. Well, 100% we don't need to, but 80, can we?
Right,
80%, yes, of course we can. Number two, what is 80, what is 20? Let's not get into it. But that we are self-sufficient, that's for sure. What is taking place in the world? Does that happen in Russia only? The whole world shows that attitude, that including Mr. Trump, to external relationship and external trades. I'm not talking about tariffs and other things. To the agreement positions, they already destroyed that international instrument that for many years kept the balance of the international trade and international relationship. They don't have it today. What does it bring countries to? Necessity to find solutions. But one of the first solutions, that's a self-sufficiency. That's close what's inside that you have. What we're going to face today, that many countries today have to develop because of the internal resources. Look what China does.
Yeah.
Look what America does. What does Russia do? More than that. Can Russia do that? Yes, I confirm it. Yes, Russia does it, and they can do it. And we need to understand that destroying the connections, it will not stay away from Western elements like a financial, for example, dollar. Who would have thought 10 years ago that the dollar could be shakeable?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can ask anybody, it's forever. Today, we have national currencies looking for collecting systems inside BRICS and others. Can we do that? Yes, it's possible.
Could I interrupt just to point out that, so I was here in June, and when I exchanged my dollars for rubles, I did it at 82 rubles to the dollar. This time it was 76. So much for the ruble turning into rubble.
I'll tell you more, actually. Again, that's my personal position, that ruble can be stable and should be stable. I'll explain to you in the economy-wise. You will understand me quickly. When I said that Russia prophesied is over 100 billions, just for this year, 100 billion, it's a guarantee. You can explain it easily because the currency is the result of offer and a request. If we have such numbers, we can allow ourselves to have a stability of ruble for a long term. Look at what China does. They demonstrate the same story. But concerning dollar, not for the audience to get scared, to think. What is dollar kingship stands on? I'm sorry that two couple of words about the dollar, because dollar today with a dollar, it is threatening. Just quick swing again, not a detailed analysis. It's like a brush strokes. We know what's the world or GDP. It's about $100 trillion if we speak about the dollar. And if we see the mirror into the derivative, into the assets, insurance assets, and papers, a lot of financial sphere birth the instruments that in real sector they would give the mirror image like a mushrooms.
Right.
You know, the head of the mushrooms, and there's the leg or the stem, and you know that there comes first papers, assets, and obligations, and other things. The whole system. It goes over the whole mass, the stocks, right, of that real sphere that is producing. And the stability of the whole sphere depends on how good that stem of the mushroom is functioning. And since all that is serviced by the dollar earlier, the dollar had a colossal influence. But as soon as countries were able to look at this position with some kind of danger or doubt that dollar becomes from currency to politics, now the countries of BRICS, for example, they take 40% of the world production. What does it mean? That if this volume will stop serviced by the dollar, that means that the stem would go down 40%, but the mushroom, no. That means the pressure on that stem would be big, and it will be very unstable. And this is a huge, serious problem. And we see that the dollar stability is not enough. Not American basis or whatever. Otherwise, nothing can cover it. It's just the economy can make this dollar strong. Nothing else. Trump is trying to do that. It's a lengthy process. So getting back to Russia, I can say that we understand that. And we trying to make the ruble strong, stable. The questions about that, searching the resources inside the country, that Russia answers the question. That Russia is able to find those resources inside the country, as China did that earlier, just like America did that. All the mistakes that the West does, that they put us in a different position. They don't want us into the line together with them, and that's a loss on their side. We understand the economy very well. We have the potential. We're able to form economical model that does not need coming out from the outside, the pouring from the outside, the speculative capitals, and would not react to sanctions, because what can they limit? What can they do to us? For oil, what, we're going to sell it less? And what, we cannot work with it inside the country? It's unlimited. You know, you can. It's a 100% recyclable product. Maybe we'll sell oil products. What will happen to the oil prices in the whole world? Have everybody counted what's gonna happen to the whole world?
Well, in fact, imposing sanctions on oil is going to raise the price of oil, which my simple understanding of math means Russia will probably make more money off of that than less. So one of your colleagues I spoke with yesterday noted, he said, look, the entire sanctions package the West put on Russia actually strengthened Russia and maybe even awakened Russia to realize, hey, we don't need them. We can do fine on our own. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yes, fair assessment, because what happened, the mindset broke. Our president some time ago said honestly that when he was asked what he would feel sorry about, or feels sorry about, he says that that at some moment, neither he or anybody else, we trusted West too much. We trusted as a partner, potential partner. Unfortunately, we were cheated many times, lied, and it played a hand to Russia, but not for the good for other countries. So I can say today that to understand the sovereignty, it will not take place in the conditions when you're relaxed. It can happen only to the hard, being a hard opponent. So we can say that, we can say thank you, West, that you made us to look at ourselves and the whole situation differently. And another thing is not just to look, but financiers. Just imagine, 2022, beginning of the operation, sanctions were imposed. What did U.S. started from the financial sector? Because they thought that money, they got into the sphere of, because the process, it's a top, easiest level. Money is like closed thing to control other states. Rothschild said that if you need to control, they don't need politicians of this country. And it's not just the banker who said that the influence of the financial sphere is very important. They cut us off from SWIFT, doing of the credits, nothing happened. And the West have thought about that. So imagine 2022, they prophesied that GDP would go down 15 to 20%.
Right.
We had 1% down, and in 2030 we went up 4%. 4%. And during 22-24, our GDP product in rubles went up 50%. 50%. So even then we could have understood that we have not started. We just started to rebirth our economy center. We could have sold all the raw materials and buy anything, that we had that position. But now it's so different.
So how important has the special military operation and the ensuing sanctions been in accelerating the development of BRICS and advancing BRICS? As you pointed out, I think early on, we're at the dawn of the creation of a new international financial and political order, one that's going to take a break from that which was developed at the end of World War II or the Great Patriotic War. I don't know if you'd agree with me on that or not.
You know, I would say that maybe not the special operation, but the reaction to that operation.
Correct.
And maybe for the reasons. Because the special operation, it's a separated topic. It was birthed in Ukraine. It was born in America. So today, when we evaluate Trump's position, West should acknowledge that the reason of the special military operation practically is getting into our house with the guns and bases. If they wouldn't do that, everything would be okay. Now, that's a separated topic.
Right.
So that was a push, not just to consolidate BRICS, but consolidation of the world that does not take Western position. West is going down, it's shrinking because many countries don't understand that why going to freedom and independence, it is so aggressive. And it's two double standards. And we ask the question, why are we worse? We want to be together, but together with who? Who respects us? Who don't dictate terms and conditions for us. You're not in the situation. So the reaction to these events brought to this, and we also have constant discussions when Europe and America, Europe is less, of course, about the frozen assets of Russia. Either they divide them or take them away or give them to somebody. You know, it's not a question of Russia. Russia's not going to get poor because of that. But being illegal in a relationship, now it's a holy place. You know, money is a holy thing. It's like an idol to West. It breaks the trust. And this is what we need to be scared of. This is what we need to think about. The rest will deploy. Nobody at BRICS, not one leader or one who would want to join, never spoke that, hey, let's get together against somebody. It also aggravates.
Well, we've seen, again, we can continue to see the trend, particularly among the BRICS leaders, of not using the U.S. currency. So I guess most recently India said, hey, we'll pay for Russian oil with Chinese yuan. And, you know, the previous role of the petrodollar gone. I've also looked at the SWIFT transactions, and this year marked, I think, the first significant decline in SWIFT transactions, which, you know, maybe that's because there's a shift to more digital platforms, but I would also argue it's a shift away from the dollars. As well as with Brazil and China, you know, China, as part of the trade dispute with the United States, said, okay, we're not buying any more of your soybeans. And then they turn around and buy the soybeans from Brazil. But again, it's not, the transaction's not in US dollars. So I think one of the reasons we're also seeing this decline in the value of the dollar is there's less demand for it. You know, am I off base on that?
Yes, you're 100% right, but I want to add a couple of things, a couple of strokes that
That's why I'm asking you the questions, to add those additional things.
If the West, if they saw dollar as unshakable instrument for payments, and it was comfortable, but until it was economical category. But when everybody saw that you could use it in other objectives, nobody liked that. Like is one thing, but to stand against is another thing. And a big state started to think that if, to be honest, that dollar's coming up, then as a world currency, it was backed by gold. But what now does it back with? Nothing.
Yeah.
It's just dollar's leadership. It is covered by politics of the United States, American weapon bases, and etc. But never with economical potential,
right.
But not the substance. There's no substance behind that paper, and people use that because your audience doesn't know that, but for economists it's a mission profit, mission income. In Americans, we have to say honest, the income of America was based because US dollar was world currency. How much does it cost to print the paper? A cent, 10 cents? Yeah. And how much is it sold for? $100, $400,
Yeah.
maybe for 99 for the banks.
Right.
And it costs 10 cents. And who gets the profit? America. Just try to calculate that how much money did America get the emission profit. Nobody speaks about it, but it's a huge potential that I am sure of, that America has the strength to start not just wars, but all hell can break loose because it's leadership and great wealth. So narrowing down, that means less emission profit. And that's obvious. But now, a lot of people know that, a lot of states know that, and they say, well, wait a minute, why do we need a dollar? To count, to pay, that's one thing. But to be dependent on banks and insurance companies, all the institutes. Sometimes I had to work to talk about that topic. I had a chance, and there is all the foundations to speak, and Americans to have worries, be concerned that sooner or later that the world will come not to exchange the dollar, to change the dollar, because the dollar, it's not to change it, but to change the institutes that cover the leadership of dollar. Yes. Take a look at the International Monetary Fund, World Bank. We'll give this, we won't give that. They have a special operation, and against all rules that were taken, the International Monetary Fund gives credit to Ukrainians for war against all principles of functioning of that institute. So it is all breathes with politics. The whole world sees it. So if something happens in other countries, they also watch the countries. So they can do that, use that weapon against them also. So there's no trust for dollar, and you have a desire to stand against dollar with something else. So this process is not quick, but today it breaks the monopoly. So the process is destructed. It started. The destruction has started. How much time it will take, we don't know.
Right. No, I think the West is blind. Many in the West are blind to I'll call it the train that's coming down the tracks. It's going to run over them without understanding how consequential these changes are. Now, within the Duma, will your legislature need to pass any new laws in order to, if you will, embrace the new economic system under BRICS?
Yes, we changed a lot of things, and we put it all in agreement but right now BRICS is a union of countries that are still forming. And it was not like BRICS, that searching solutions and answers to the questions. It's not just trade. It's searching for the cooperation in the area of science, technologies, answers to the questions that we give to the whole humanity. There's AI. And it's not just safety. It's not just military safety. It's not just a peaceful safety. Today, when we made BRICS, when we created BRICS, is to create inside BRICS different directions that would looking for the answers to all these questions. And they're looking for the answers that's going to touch everybody. We have to think. People have a healthy mind in America and the West. It would not be just serious that you can have different powers. No, there are people that think about the future, about the good future. If we speak about a positive dynamics of the people's development, the model, when the goal is profit, that model stopped working. I'm trying to explain to you why it happens at BRICS. Because the whole humanity proved and speaks, all presidents and leaders of the country speak about that. What Roman Club says, the resources are over with. There's no ability to create products, to feed everybody. That's all empty words. Humanity has colossal, unlimited resources to satisfy absolutely all needs. The question is, as in being just, to how to give it out equally to all people. But if we speak about what a new model needs to bring, it needs to give an answer. What do we offer to the humanity? It's important to explain to people why does economy exist. And we see that the practice in China, it's difficult to imagine that the goal of development of China is profit.
Yeah, yeah.
His theory is quite limited because you look at that as a country, these categories as childhood, as old age, they don't have the price. So it's not just, there's no price to that. And there's no goal for the humanity to live. So all that, people need to think about health, not about what they have, but what about how to create, how to implement yourself. And the humanity cannot allow itself to do that. This topic is supposed to be not just a discussion of one country, but as much as possible, as many as possible. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. That's what we need to concentrate on, because the question to these answers, they speak about the quality of life. So we put into the development and the humanitarian field on the first field. All the economy has to be how to solve the quality of life, how to satisfy everybody. How much does it cost to drink? How much coffee can you drink? 10 cups, 15 cups? That's it. Yeah. Unlimited resources and unlimited development, they need to be covered, supplied, so economy has to be direct. But it goes difficult because humanity thought formed economy that only for profit. We could have done it then. Now, everything is so public that it goes for the background, who understand that they will live for it.
Well, in fact, I think that the success that Russia has had since the collapse in the 90s, the collapse of the economy, rebuilding the economy, and then Russia, I think, is surpassed by the dramatic change that has taken place in China over the last 26 years with the emergence of a very strong middle class, where 26 years ago, if 15% were considered middle class, that may have been an excessive assessment. And both countries show that the traditional capitalist model doesn't work, or you don't have to have the traditional capitalist model in order to succeed economically and raise the welfare and of your citizens.
25 years ago, China didn't know what is high-speed roads. Today, they're bigger than that, 45,000 kilometers. Can we imagine, and economists know that we have built a high-speed road, that they are paid by the tickets? That's more than naive. Does it mean that the target, the goal of the construction of this high-speed road would be defeat or loss? No. It's too narrow to look at that project this way. If you just take it as in a system of a classical capitalism, you don't need that, because they're not payable. But if we speak about the quality of life, because of that a lot of territories turn into physical part to economical part, where they have high-speed road that you can build there, that you can have infrastructure there, industry. That's another approach to economical development. And today Russia demonstrates it. So not just the profit point of view. We talk about medical care, we talk about other things, science, education, and it so pays off. It just breaks your practice. And this is what Russia sees, because the quality, what are the goals that we have for development of our country? Demography. It's a real position for everybody to develop the people. Comfort is that everybody at Russia have to have with infrastructure and logistics, Medicaid, the quality of life in the same way as in Moscow, and cover up everywhere else. So this is the objective. And coming from the profit point of view, it's not payable. The profit is not there. Our country is not a corporation. So today they break the view, the point of view, and there we have examples. I don't know if that idea can go further on, but I think that for me there's an example. Europe for a long time lived on the cheap gas from Europe, from Russia. It's a fact, and we see that happens. And Europe destroys itself because politics is over economy. When Europe started to be destroyed, when it was a natural process to being united, the countries took away the customs barrier to flow back and forth the capital, so there was good economical conditions for that. But when they got into politics, Baltics was included, Romania, they put in the countries not about economical value, but about loyalty. So Europe started being destroyed, same in economy. They changed American gas and Russian gas. Okay, good for Americans, but for Europe, that's bad. And you understand that behind the words, there's also realities. And I think that because of your conversations and podcasts, they'll understand that not all is simple and easy.
Yeah, no, that's true. Let me shift the topic a little bit to the nature of the political support for the special military operation. There are some analysts in the West, and I'll specifically mention Gilbert Doctorow, who claim that support for President Putin is eroding, that there is great frustration directed at President Putin for the slow pace of the war in Ukraine, and that if he doesn't basically get tougher quick, he'll be removed. What would you say to someone like Gilbert Doctorow?
I would say from the end, start from the end, that the support of our president is unprecedented, and it's reality. We watch that not just in the campaign, on the segments of lives. In Duma, we have 5 fractions, 5 parts, 5 parties. We have 100% consolidation with the president. We have voters behind us. So if we talk about people who are on the streets, you can look outside on the streets and ask. You can see it for yourself. We don't need to be proved. And the election and legality of this election. When people vote for him, 80-something%, that means that the people has given him the power, trusted him the power. And it's a direct election. It's not through some system that is elected, electoral or something. It's a direct election. We need to respect it. And number 2, we have to talk about it that our president, we don't fight with Ukrainian people. We fight with fascists. We cannot allow ourselves to bomb them. It's hard to imagine that Russia would, with the potential it has, would try to clear out the enemies.
Right.
We don't want civilians to die. And that means that we put rockets into certain spots. And then another thing, we don't need to prove anybody that we are right or wrong. We have a president and the army. So, you know, for me as a politician, it's not even correct to comment it.
Right.
Me as politician, what am I gonna teach the militants how to do that? When, how, what? And I trust them. If we talk about who is against us, we have standing against us a Slavic nation. I'm not gonna divide the people I don't think that anybody in Europe would be standing against so strong. But we knew how they did it in 41, 39, 41. You know, they can read their own history.
Right.
Some gave up, surrendered 8 days, 7 days, but everybody gave up, surrendered their states just to keep a possibility to drink wine and eat cheese. We have different measures. And we have to look at the special operation as an operation. Though we understand today that the West today, with the supplies of guns and weapons, information, unfortunately, they included their process. Unfortunately, there's no, this is not legal. The special operation, it's not for the West to value the quality and the number of our victories. We have to say one thing. They don't notice that, the West itself, collectivists. But if they read their own rhetorics on 2022 and 25, in 22 they prophesied the destruction of Russia. It was the objective. And today they say, oh, we need to stop the war. We need to stop the war, the fire line. Yes, sir. Different rhetorics. And our rhetorics didn't change. And we have the same objective.
Well, Mr. Babakov, I'd love to continue the conversation, but I've been given the sign that we've run out of time. So listen, thank you so much. It was an enlightening conversation. I look forward to its translation into English so I can share it with my countrymen so they can understand that, you know what? Russia's not an authoritarian state. It has politicians, informed, competent men like yourself, competent men and women. And so, listen, I thank you for taking this time.
Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you.
Thank you.